Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
Wonderful job. Appreciate it. And thank everybody for being here. And please feel free to sit. So before we begin this important ceremony, and there's no ceremony that can be much more important than this, let me provide a brief update on Operation Epic Fury. Today, the United States military continues to carry out large-scale combat operations in Iran to eliminate the grave threats posed to America by this terrible terrorist regime. Following our obliteration of Iran's nuclear program in Operation Midnight Hammer a short while ago, we warned Iran not to make any attempt to rebuild at a different location because they were unable to use the ones that we so powerfully blew up. But they ignored those warnings and refused to cease their pursuit of nuclear weapons. In addition, the regime's conventional ballistic missile program was growing rapidly and dramatically, and this posed a very clear, colossal threat to America and our forces stationed overseas. The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America. The purpose of this fast-growing missile program was to shield their nuclear weapon development and make it extraordinarily difficult for anyone to stop them from making these highly forbidden by us nuclear weapons. We were the ones that were complaining. We were the ones that wanted it stopped. But everybody was behind us. They just didn't have the courage to say so. An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people. Our country itself would be under threat, and it was very nearly under threat. I was very proud to have knocked out the Iran nuclear deal by President Barack Hussein Obama. That was a horrible, horrible, dangerous document. They would have had nuclear weapons 3 years ago, and they would have used them. But I'll not let that happen. For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. and we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out, and they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service.
Yeah, let's just stop it there because there is nothing. I know. I don't usually start the show with Diaper Dawn, but let's be honest, a lot's happened, and it's only been 48 hours. That being said, today's date, March the 4th, 2026. This is how the Frack got here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on the Frack got here. We do take the events of the week, try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast. What does that mean? We only cite from sources with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, Daily Beast, now CBS. Whatever extreme left or extreme right views you have, we simply do not do that. At the same time, we do try to watch professionalism, but words do fly, and we do show a lot of things that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So unless you've basically been under a rock for like the last 48 hours, and you see the title of this podcast, yes, if I could play the Black Sabbath War Pigs, I would, because, man, we all thought Venezuela was bad. We all thought there is no way this Jabba the Hutt, or about to be Jabba the Hutt of a president, is going to sink any lower than committing a war crime of kidnapping a Venezuelan president and then bringing him to the U.S. to serve war crimes. And then he sat there as if we said, how dumb can you be? And this diaper-wearing, catheter-draining, shingles-laden cesspool of an individual sat there and said, hold my beer. I'm going to go after Iran. Jesus effing. Okay, I know. It's only been 7 minutes in the podcast. I'm already cussing. Jesus fracking Christ. What is it about Republicans in the Middle East? What I am really, really trying to figure that one out. What is it? I mean, it's like, what is it with white people and brown countries? Do y'all just have a hard on for going into places with, thinking with the lower head and saying, I can fix this? And then Iran. Haven't we done this chapter before with Reagan? Now, I know for a lot of you guys, like I said, I'm in my 40s. I know from the history books, this isn't the first time we dealt with Iran. Ronald Reagan, who is apparently the white savior of the Republican Party, had his own issues with Iran, including the Iran-Contra affair, to where, for all those that don't have a history book in front of them, they had a problem with Iran. Why? Ronald Reagan did not like who was running Iran at the time. And so what happened? Decided to basically cut off their supplies to Iran, while on the back end going through various arms dealers selling weapons to Iran, and also selling weapons to its neighboring warring countries. Long story short, they basically overthrew who was leader at the time, installed one of their own, and then ever since then, Iran actually had another upheaval by its own people, installed their own supreme leader, who was just taken out 48 hours plus ago. Why? Because Diaper Dawn and Hardly Sober, Pete Hegseth, decided that Iran needs to go. And as you heard from Diaper Dawn just now, well, if it wasn't for the fact that my predecessor, Barack Hussein Obama, if he didn't sign the document, oh, you mean the document that basically said Iran will not have a nuclear program, will not create nuclear weapons, at the same time will be recognized as a country with its own sovereignty. That document, that guaranteed, hey, Iran, you don't start none, we don't start none, everybody's cool. That's the gist of the document. And yet, this cesspool of an idiot has decided that Iran needs to go because Iran apparently is the number one place for terror. I'm sorry. All I gotta say is, who the frack is writing your scripts? Who's writing your scripts? Because first it was Afghanistan was number one center for terror. Then it was Iraq, the number one center for terrorism. And now it's Iran. Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. Are we just changing it like every week, like wrestling? There's always a new heel somewhere that we got to say is the number one person. And on top of that, this whole thing of, well, they would have created a nuclear weapon in 3 years. Really? What's your source? Trust me, bro. because this is the same group of people, the same administration that said we had to go after Venezuela. We had to liberate Venezuela by kidnapping their president. This is the same administration that turns around and sat there and says, well, illegal, they're sending the worst of the worst, and that's why we have a border crisis. His sources always trust me, bro. I'm sorry. Name one thing Trump has actually said that was honest outside the fact that he actually above all else. No, that's not true. I was gonna say, yeah, he's just guilty as Epstein. Actually, he's never said anything true in his life. That being said, with Iran now, because again, Iran has been bombed. And of course, Israel is right along with it because the welfare queen, Israel's leader, Netanyahu, he wants a war with Iran. But that's Israel. For a lot of people who don't know, the U.S. finances Israel in so many ways. You know, Israel has free healthcare, free education, all, healthcare, universities, things of that nature. If you live in Israel, you got it made. Want to know why? Because the U.S. backs it up, military-wise and financially. We send billion dollar packages to Israel every year. So Israel benefits off U.S. tremendously. And you know what Netanyahu will do? Netanyahu, that welfare queen, will turn around and say, I'm going to pick a fight with every other country in the region, and I got the U.S. backing me up. Because they try to sit there and say, well, Israel was going to attack Iran, whether they did not have the U.S. support or not. Let's be honest about that before I play Mark Rubio, the Secretary of State, who's going to probably say some bullshit of the reason why they did it. Israel will not attack anybody unless the U.S. backs them up. Let's just be honest. Israel can bark at the moon, but unless he can get Diaper Dawn to be like, I will help out the welfare queen, Israel just a dog barking. At the same time, they bombed a school with children. There's no excuse for that. And I know war is ugly. And the last thing, and I know for Americans, we are all tired of war. Do you understand that we've been in war since the inception of this country? I think if I've got my history right, I think in our allotted history from its inception up until now, I think there was maybe 2 decades somewhere in between where the U.S. wasn't involved in a theater of war. 20 years. Inside of our inception, there's maybe been 20 years where the U.S. was not involved in a war. Every other year we were involved in a war. We can't get education right. We can't get free healthcare right. But like George Carlin said, we can bomb the shit out of countries pretty well. But I digress. Like I said before, it makes no sense that the war pigs are all coming and foaming at the mouth. And let's be honest, with a war, some things follow. But let's first go to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who's got enough issues running Venezuela, but now has to basically be the right hand of Diaper Dawn, trying to explain what this idiot fucked up again. And I do mean he fucked up again.
Explanation from the White House about why the U.S. started a war with Iran. The Secretary of State saying the U.S. attacks were preemptive, that Israel was going to strike Iran with or without the U.S.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties.
The president has insisted Iran posed an imminent threat to the U.S.
The regime already had missiles capable of hitting Europe and our bases, both local and overseas, and would soon have had missiles capable of reaching our beautiful America.
But American intelligence agencies say Iran would not have had missiles capable of reaching the U.S. for another 9 years. The president predicts the U.S. will, quote, easily prevail in this war and is dismissing concerns that he will tire of this fight if it drags on beyond the 4 to 5 weeks that he's projected.
Somebody said today, they said, oh, well, the president wants to do it really quickly. After that, he'll get bored. I don't get bored.
Moments later, though, Trump distracted by the White House decor.
I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold.
The president isn't ruling out sending in U.S. troops if necessary, telling the New York Post, I don't have the yips with respect to boots on the ground. Like every president says, there will be no boots on the ground. I don't say it. As for the future of Iran, the administration with more mixed messages. The president has been urging the Iranian people to overthrow the government. But at the Pentagon, Secretary Hegseth adamant regime change was not the U.S. objective.
This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it.
Some of Trump's longtime supporters in the MAGA movement raising serious concerns.
It's pretty clear that we're not going to gain anything more. And how do we know that? Because no one has explained what we're there to gain.
On Capitol Hill, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee questioning the president's justification for starting this war now.
But if we equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory.
Now, the administration is set to brief the full Congress later today. Overnight, the president sent formal notification of these strikes to the Hill, but Democrats are demanding that this war be put to a vote. And the House is expected to take up a war powers resolution later this week. That would block any further U.S. military action in Iran without congressional approval. But, George, that is unlikely to become law.
So what's crazy about this, folks, is the whole thing of if we don't get them, they'll get us. Really? So Iran is wanting to get even. So let me get this straight. Iran will literally and figuratively go after the U.S. if left unchecked. It's almost as if, like, if you listen to Fox News, which I will not play because I don't want to subject you guys to that. But let's think about this for a second. They are literally trying to sit there and say, if we don't get them now, they will get us. Gee, I wonder why a Middle Eastern country would want to go after the U.S. unless the U.S. did something to them first. And that's what they're saying. They're trying to say, well, the Iran started this war. No, we did. When we decided to launch missiles at them, when we decided to take out their leader, when we decided that you have Diaper Dawn telling the Iranian people, overthrow your government, and yet will not tell the same thing to the American people. Figure that one out. But again, Hegseth, which I'm surprised he's sober and looks like he probably reeks of bourbon, is sitting there saying, well, the regime change wasn't the goal. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I hate when they sit there and be like, do not tell the lie. Do not tell the lie to where you think we're just going to eat it up. Oh, well, the regime change wasn't the goal. And yet you took out the number one guy. And it's like, oh, well, we're expecting retaliation. Yeah. I think that happens when you decide to attack a country unprovoked. It's also called a war crime. Also an impeachable offense. But I know, let's be honest, the Republicans are not going to impeach Trump. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Trump could, and I don't mean to put this graphic, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. And I apologize for any young voices that hear this. Trump could do the most deplorable thing on live television. And I mean, I'm not going to go graphic, but just think of the most deplorable, horrible, unspeakable act. This man could do it live on camera on national television, laughing his ass off. And I will bet money the Republicans will do nothing about it. Just saying. This man could do anything he wants. And it shows. He can do anything he wants. Why? Because he has the Republican Party behind him. They will not impeach him. They will not tether him. And that this next thing I'm about to show, well, remember that war powers they talked about where Congress is trying to rein in his abilities to start wars and conduct wars? Well, guess what happened?
Because in just the last hour, we've been looking at this vote in which lawmakers in the Senate were trying to pass a bill that would require the president to get the green light from Congress before more strikes against Iran. That bill has now failed, and that vote is closed. That's a done deal. Julie Sturkin is on the Hill. Walk us through what happened.
Yeah, Hallie, as we talked about last hour, this was pretty pre-baked. I say that because we knew that only one Democrat, Senator John Fetterman, was prepared to vote with Republicans against the War Powers Resolution, and only one Republican, Senator Rand Paul, voted with Democrats for it. Now, what this War Powers Resolution does, as we talked about, is essentially if it passed, and if it passed in the House, and if there was a veto-proof majority, it would restrain the president's future military action in Iran. But that is not going anywhere. There's a House vote expected tomorrow. Speaker Johnson told me this morning that he feels pretty good about his members being able to defeat it, but that doesn't mean there aren't concerns. And so that's why, as I said last hour, Hallie, it's important to talk about a potential funding request coming from the administration. We're hearing that the White House plans to ask Congress for more money to fund their operations in Iran. The longer that it takes, the more I think Republicans even will start to lose their patience when it comes to boots on the ground, potentially something the administration hasn't taken off the table. When it comes to a rise in casualties, potentially something President Trump previewed himself, that is when I think you're going to start to see Republicans, at least some of them, start to get a little bit more uncomfortable, especially since we are months away from midterm elections. And certainly this is going to be something the Democrats try to use against them politically. And so this is a moment that we find ourselves in which I think we're just beginning to see how Congress is trying to respond to this effort. It's not the end of the road there. Of course, though, as these operations go on, we're seeing Congress become more and more irrelevant and sort of ceding that power to the executive branch, which is exactly why Democrats are pushing those votes to begin with, Hallie.
And just to be clear, Jules, as you make the point here, not signs of much daylight between the majority of the Republican conference here and President Trump, right?
Not at this point. They're so far extremely supportive of what the administration is doing here. But I do think it's going to become a more interesting question depending on how long this is going to go. It was a very open-ended answer that members of Congress received in their classified briefings, Hallie.
So, yes, what's crazy about this is the Democrats in the House, along with some Republicans, did try to push forward a War Powers Resolution Act. It went to the Senate. And of course, it was defeated 47-53. If all those that want to know, like, wait a minute, 47-53, yes, a Democrat did join them. And if you want to know the names, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, which I don't know about you guys. If there's a Democrat in Pennsylvania that's running for senator, please run against that idiot because he can't decide whether he wants to be inactive or Republican. But what's so crazy about this is that's the reason why I kept saying the entire time, even said it on my socials, the reason why Diaper Don and the reason why his administration feels so untouchable right now, so effing untouchable when you have the backing of the Republican Party. And right now, the Republican Party has majority in the House, barely majority in the House, do have majority in the Senate. So that's why Diaper Don is fine. He can sit, that's what I said. Well, using my analogy previously, think of the most deplorable act you can do on national television. This man can do it and would still be president tomorrow. Because the Republicans would find some way to explain it away, to sit there and say, well, it's just the president. They will do everything short and allow him to do what he wants. And with that War Powers Resolution Act defeated, that is their way of saying, hey, Republicans, you're pretty much saying, hail Diaper Don. You've pretty much gave a president dictatorship powers in a war. Which is why I also sat there and said, guys, it's a simple fact of the matter that if war crimes are ever passed on this administration, every person in the Republican Party that's currently in office that voted to support that man is an accomplice to his war crimes and should be tried accordingly. All of them. You want to show, if we want to show as Americans, and I know that's not going to happen under Bondi, which we'll get to momentarily, but I'm just saying the Republican Party backs him up. And because of that, that's why Trump is like, I'm good. And so he moves forward. But the crazy part about this is, and I want to cover this story before we get to the other reason why wars are terrible, is that he also turned around and said, well, I might arm the Kurds there as a alternative method on fighting Iran. Really? You want to give the opposing forces around Iran weapons. And I've said this already because this is history repeating itself. because Reagan did the same damn thing. Hence Iran-Contra. If you want to know, like I said, I'm a big proponent of history. Look up Iran-Contra because again, it explains exactly everything that Reagan tried to do. Because again, they tried to paint Iran as this terrible country, and in the end, they wound up making it worse. Think of Vietnam just in a different geological area. That's just being honest. But the other story that, again, like I said, if Venezuela was a test, Iran was, hey, we were able to get away with it. This is what's scary. That he, again, this is coming from Trump, he wants to take over Cuba. He was sitting there saying that, quote unquote, the Cuban government is talking with us. They're in a big deal of trouble. As you know, they have no money. They have anything right now, but they're talking with us. Keep in mind, there was a traveling embargo put in place by President Obama. Of course, when Trump came along, he removed it. Biden came along, reinstalled it. Trump came back along, removed it. Why was that traveling embargo important? Because that meant that Cuba actually had a lane to the U.S. Flights can go between here and Cuba. Goods can be sold between the two countries. It was actually very helpful. Now, because again, this is what Trump does best. Trump causes a problem. And I can't stress this enough. Trump causes a problem, then turns around and acts like he's bringing a solution, and then acts like the conquering hero. You cannot start a fire, then come with the fire department, put out said fire, and then look around like it's a participation award for the same person who threw the matches in the first place. And that's exactly what Trump is doing. And now he's got his, and again, this imperialism is what it is. Because that's what he's trying to do. He wants Venezuela. And we already talked about Venezuela. Venezuela sits on the largest reserve of oil, more than the US, Saudi Arabia, and Russia combined. And Venezuela has a poor infrastructure when it comes to exporting that oil. Hence why every oil company wanted to meet with Trump. And of course, who's there now? Trying to deal with the Venezuelan people, because now their most Venezuelan president is open to that. And of course, gave Trump her Nobel Peace Prize. Might as well be a participation award. Not surprising about Cuba, because they're trying to do the same damn thing. Not in the fact of oil. Trump, again, I know he acts like a man on borrowed time, we hope, but he's trying to put his name on everything. I have never seen a man so obsessed with trying to beat a black guy who hasn't been in office in almost 10 years. 10 years. He is obsessed with being a man who hasn't been in office in nearly 10 years. He's like, I'm better than Obama. I got the guy in my first term. What, honestly, what yardstick measuring contest are you trying to measure up to? I mean, you already tried to make your wife the first hostage over the UN Security Council while you're bombing Iran, which I think it's funny, Melania Trump speaking on anything outside of just talking, because let's leave the first hostage alone. She's already been through enough. But really, the other part about this is that it's all distractions. Even though the Epstein files was like, man, you really started a war to have people to stop. You actually started a war to have people talking less and less about the Epstein files. You will send, and let's be honest, he talks about boots on the ground. Oh, they're going to send an army. They're going to send armed forces. And I feel bad. I feel bad for those who are enlisted and on active duty and can be called back and on reserve. I feel bad. I feel for them because they signed up to defend their country from all enemies, foreign and domestic. But just like Senator Mark Kelly says, you have the right to refuse unlawful orders. And I would hope the military, I know it won't happen, although it's wishful thinking, but I would hope the military and the Joint Chiefs would all look at Diaper Dawn and Hardly Sore Peak Hegseth and say, hell no, we will not follow this order. I would like for them to say that, but to be honest, there's some in the Army that actually look forward to war. And right now, they are jumping at the chance to get over there and do exactly what Trump wants to do, to show him to be the conquering president because all he wanted was he acted more like a terrorist and less like a so-called peacemaker, because, peace through strength is bullshit. At the same time, guys, there's another reason why we don't like war, because, well, everything goes up. And in this case, gas prices, airfare, it's all going to go up. Why? Because Iran sits on a very strategic piece of area that everybody should be familiar with.
Economic fallout and the rising prices we're now seeing right here in the United States because of the war in Iran.
Gas prices jumped another 9 cents overnight. The average cost for a gallon of gas is now around $3.20. That is more than 30 cents higher than it was last month. And here's the reason why. This is a time-lapse video. It shows you traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. All those red dots are not moving cargo ships, and the green are getting through. But you can see it is a trickle now in that region.
So let's bring back NBC News business and economy reporter Ali Canal. Ali, we continue talking about rising prices. Walk us through what we've seen today and how long this all might last.
And that's the biggest question. How long will we see this energy disruption in the Strait of Hormuz? You were just seeing from that time-lapse video, shipping there is down about 90% from where we were last week. And that really filters through to crude prices, pushing that up because global supply tightens, and therefore that flows into the prices we pay at the pump. You mentioned $3.20 a gallon. And just to put that number in perspective, Charles Schwab saying that that represents a jump of about 7% over the past 2 days. It's the biggest jump that we've seen in 21 years. And if this persists, higher energy prices could start to feed into that inflation story that obviously would be a problem for the Trump administration, because so far this year, lower gas prices have been one of the bright spots here. But clearly that's not the case at this current moment with this ongoing war.
Ali, the New York Times and other outlets are reporting on renewed scrutiny on prediction markets, people essentially betting on things like the war in Iran, the future of the Iranian leadership. Can you explain what's going on?
Yeah, so one of the largest sites here, Polymarket, has seen more than $500 million in trades on whether the U.S. would strike Iran since the end of last year. And that's according to that New York Times analysis. Now, Polymarket did not respond to NBC News' request for comment. But what's raising questions here is that just hours before the attack, a surge of large bets came in predicting a strike would happen by the next day. That's raising questions about insider trading at a time when we're seeing a lot more scrutiny around these prediction markets.
Well, that's not surprising. I mean, folks have been betting on things happening since the dawn of time. But the reason why I want to show this, guys, because yes, like they were saying, whenever war happens, prices go up. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. The only winners in a war, arms manufacturing, oil production. Oil companies are going to have a field day because, again, all of our cars need the dinosaur juice to get going. Airplanes, shipping, airplanes, freighters, truckers, all logistics also use the dinosaur juice. At the same time, production is going to be doubled because, again, like I want to show everybody, this picture here, this is what everybody should pay attention to. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Now, why is that important, you may ask? Because to basically export oil from the Middle Eastern regions like Afghanistan, like Iraq and Iran, this strait right here is the only way in and the only way out. And of course, as they explained in the piece, all the red dots are stationary tankers. All the green dots are people that can move in and out. Now, say, for example, your current oil company is stuck with their tankers in the Strait of Hormuz because Iran has sat there and said they will shoot down any tankers, any unauthorized tankers that try to come to that port. That's their area. So again, with that being said, oil companies have used that as the excuse to jack up prices because they got to have their profits. That's just the way they look at things. So yes, does it suck that prices are going to go up? Absolutely. Does it suck that, again, oil companies are going to have a field day because profits are the roof? Absolutely. At the same time, who wins the most in a war? Ammo and gun manufacturers, especially those with military contacts. So again, we should not be surprised by that. But want to switch gears for a second because the Epstein files is big. And at the same time, we have a former president and a former first lady, secretary of state, and was a potential Madam President candidate. Bill Clinton, of course, Hillary Clinton, both got deposed for Jeffrey Epstein files. Keep in mind, Trump has yet to answer one goddamn question, but Bill Clinton said it best. The former president said exactly how he felt about the entire situation.
Marathon 6-hour testimony on his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong.
Clinton reiterating much of the opening statement he gave to the Republican-led House Oversight Committee, adamant he saw no wrongdoing.
First, I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. And I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do.
Clinton was friendly with Epstein decades ago, but has never been accused of wrongdoing. Photos show them together at the White House. And the Justice Department recently released these new images showing the former president in the pool with a woman and Epstein's convicted associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. Sources telling us the former president was asked if he had sex with that unknown woman in the photo. He said he did not and didn't know her. Flight logs also show the former president took 4 international trips on Epstein's private plane in 2002 and 2003 to locations including Rwanda and China. Clinton spokesperson says those trips were for humanitarian work for the Clinton Foundation. Epstein would not be investigated for alleged sexual crimes against minors until 2005. Last summer, Ghislaine Maxwell saying this during an interview with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
I didn't see President Clinton being interested in Epstein. He was just a rich guy with a plane.
Clinton telling the committee.
But even with 20/20 hindsight, I saw nothing that ever gave me real pause. We're only here today because Epstein hid it from everyone so well for so long.
The marathon testimony coming one day after Hillary Clinton went before the same committee.
I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein.
Her husband firing back.
Republicans made Hillary testify yesterday, and she had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing, including her, was simply not right.
And back at the White House, President Trump, who was friends with Epstein for nearly 2 decades before he says he ended the relationship, now expressing support for Clinton, despite publicly ordering his Justice Department to investigate him.
I don't like seeing him deposed, but, they certainly went after me a lot more than that. I don't like seeing him. Look, I like him, and I don't like seeing him deposed.
Yeah, you don't like seeing him. You don't like seeing him deposed because it takes away from you. But they went after me. They went after me. Yet, I'm sorry, Trump. Have you sat down for a deposition yet? You didn't even sit down for a deposition when you were being investigated by Bob Mueller. You weren't even by the Mueller report. You had him, and you wouldn't sit down. And then when Epstein came up, I don't know Epstein. Well, I did know him, but I didn't go to his island. Although we did know each other for 20 years, he did come to Mar-a-Lago, but I never went to his island. Oh, I might have been to his island because I was on his plane because there's records of it, but I didn't do anything. And yet, Trump's name is mentioned more times than anybody else in the Epstein files. But yet, he directs his lapdog, and I do mean his lapdog, Pam Bondi. He directed her to turn around and investigate the Clintons. Because, well, as Bill Clinton said, I didn't see this man do anything. Will we expect him to say anything different? We said, I saw Epstein do horrendous shit. Oh, then you're an accomplice now. But Hillary, again, Hillary is used to these things. Keep in mind, she was in a 15-hour deposition. 15 hours. This one was in a 15 hours about Benghazi and didn't blink, didn't break a freaking sweat. But was annoyed that, during her deposition, they talked about Pizzagate and Benghazi, one by one airhead, Lorena Bobbert. And Hillary walked out. She says, this is ridiculous. I don't even know why I'm here. But that just goes to show you that a former president and First Lady, Secretary of State Both were at a deposition before the president, who swears up and down he's done nothing wrong. And yet there are 47,000 pages missing that has his name on it that the DOJ is currently over. At the same time, Pam Bondi, who is basically acting more like the president's personal lawyer and not the attorney general, is basically playing defense. The DOJ have had multiple court orders saying release all files, which they haven't done, curtail Democrats looking at these files, tracking whatever files they looked at, and at the same time have shown nothing but slow down and excuses, exposing Epstein's victims' information, but blocking names that could possibly be brought down for very powerful individuals. Yes, Pam Bondi is the wall that Trump can dream of, because you installed a loyalist as an attorney general who is going to cover up some horrendous shit of you and your friends. But now Pam Bondi is being subpoenaed. And I don't know how I feel about this, because this could be political theater. But again, keep in mind, the Republicans have majority.
Late today vote to subpoena the attorney general for the way her department has handled the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. You saw a handful of Republicans, right? So people in the president's own party joining Democrats on the House Oversight Committee to vote to bring Pam Bondi in, including Nancy Mace, the congresswoman on the Republican side. Watch this.
I have a lot more questions, and I don't expect to be talking about the stock market. So she better not bring those notes when she comes to the Oversight Committee.
That's a reference to the previous questioning that Bondi went through just some weeks ago in front of a different House committee on this very thing, where you see here survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse stood. They were in the audience. They were wearing shirts that talked about releasing the files. Let me bring in Ryan Nobles, who's live for us on Capitol Hill. So this is interesting. This is a real sort of shot across the bow to the White House, the Department of Justice, that they're subpoenaing now Pam Bondi. Ryan.
Yeah, and it's really born out of a sense of frustration from the members of Congress who are specifically interested in getting to the bottom of the Epstein controversy, that the Department of Justice is just not complying with the Epstein Transparency Act, which requires them to release every file available to the public as it relates to the Epstein files, and that they're only allowed to redact things if they're part of an ongoing investigation or to protect the identities or personal information of survivors. And members of Congress like Nancy Mace have felt that the Department of Justice has been way too heavy-handed with their redactions, that their redactions are inconsistent, that there are names like Les Wexner's name, for instance, a business partner of Jeffrey Epstein, an alleged co-conspirator. His name was redacted at one point, but then there are examples of survivors whose names have not been redacted. And they feel as though the Department of Justice has just not been forthcoming enough about why certain things have been redacted and how other things have slipped through the cracks. And so they want Pam Bondi to come in front of the committee, ask her about specific files, specific pieces of information, and try and understand this process as to why they have not been able to fully comply with this. And I would imagine as well, Hallie, that there's going to be questions about the fact that there's some 3 million files that the Department of Justice has just said we have in our possession, but we're just not going to release those to the public for whatever reason. So there's a lot of tough questions that Pam Bondi could get from this committee.
When you talk about the files, when you talk about the documents, there's an interesting sort of development today, first reported by the Wall Street Journal, that the Department of Justice now is confirming that it's got like something like 40,000 plus documents that it's sort of re-reviewing, right? That are not out because they're looking at them.
Right. And the Department of Justice said in a statement today that this is part of the process, that they put this stuff out as quickly as they possibly could, that some redactions and errors that shouldn't have happened or should have happened slipped through the cracks. And so therefore, they're going to bring back some stuff. They say the department has not deleted any files from the library. In compliance with the EFTA, our team is working around the clock to address victims' concerns, redact personally identifiable information and any images of a sexual nature. So they did admit there's some close to 50,000 files as of March 2nd that were offline for further review. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal report, among those files, Hallie, were specific allegations against Donald Trump, which of course has raised questions because this is not the first time that allegations against Trump have been taken off the website and then eventually put back up. So we'll have to see if those files ever reemerge, Hallie.
And then when you talk about, the questions that they want to ask the Attorney General Pam Bondi, there's also kind of a new crop of people who they're asking to question, including Bill Gates, including Clinton confidant Doug Band, and others, right?
Yeah, and Kathy Rumler, the former Obama White House counsel. And then the other big name is Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, who you and I have talked about a lot. He's agreed to come and testify. Now, what's interesting about this round of the Gates, Rumler, Black, Groff, these are all individuals who right now the committee is asking to come in voluntarily. They're not formal subpoenas yet. And if you're a witness and you're being asked to come in voluntarily, that does give you a degree of negotiating power. You can say, I'll come in, but only if you ask me about X, Y, and Z, or I'll come in under these certain conditions. As soon as it moves to a subpoena, then it becomes more difficult, and the committee is less inclined to meet your needs, especially if you're not a former president of the United States like Bill Clinton. So it'll be interesting to see, especially someone like Bill Gates, who's very powerful, has very good lawyers, how he handles this. So far, he's not responded directly to this request, but I would be very surprised if any of the folks on this list find a way to avoid having to answer questions of this committee.
Ryan.
And he's got a point. He's got a point that, look, Pam Bondi has already been in front of a committee. We've shown the videos, I think it was almost 2 weeks ago on the last podcast, where she was combative, where she didn't really answer anything. She promoted Donald Trump like she's running a campaign. And so now you're going to get in front of another committee to explain your handling of the Epstein files. See, here's my thing. If it was more balanced, I would sit there and say that she's going to be more forthcoming. But it's a Republican-led committee with very few Democrats on it. I don't see a lot happening. Now, I see people go, well, Will, if it was Democrat-led and they had the majority, you'd be on fire for this. No. I think Pam Bondi would be a lot more forthcoming because, again, the AG can be removed by Congress. The AG can be removed by Congress. It may take a majority in the House, it may take a majority in the House and the Senate, but an attorney general can be moved without the president's approval. But again, Pam Bondi is Trump's lapdog. She is doing exactly, because for a lot of people, I have to explain this. Pam Bondi is doing for the Epstein files what Bill Barr did for Trump with the Mueller investigation. Because the Mueller investigation should have put Trump behind bars. Bill Barr decided that no, we're going to dismiss it. Because when he was the attorney general, he had the smoking gun. And they redacted a lot of that report, even though the report suggested he more than knew about the election interference that he was causing in the election that he was running in. Even more now with the Epstein files. He knows and he's guilty, but Pam Bondi is going to do her job, be his personal lawyer in one of the strongest positions in Congress. And that alone does not scream conflict of interest. I don't know what. So no, I am not expecting a lot from this. I really am not. But again, we will see. But moving right along, guys, I know, Jesus, this is why I know when it comes to certain things on social media, we got to be careful about our kids doing. And I think to myself, who are these kids doing the dumb shit? The Tide Pods, the whole, I'm trying to think, the milk carton pyramid thing about trying to go up it and, the injuries and concussions happen from this. Dear God, all I gotta say in this next one, if you got kids and they think of something like this, please stop them and take away their phones.
A new warning about another dangerous challenge going viral on social media. This time, the so-called fire breathing challenge.
We are not meant to breathe fire as human beings.
Authorities in Western Pennsylvania say a teenager is lucky to be alive after trying to breathe fire with isopropyl alcohol. The teen is now in the hospital, intubated with serious burns.
Luckily, in this particular case, it did not burn the building down, but somebody really got hurt and, is going to have life-altering injuries from this incident.
Parents are being urged to pay close attention to what their children have access to when it comes to household products.
If they're doing their hair with chemicals, if they're taking isopropyl alcohol in the room or any type of fingernail polish remover, monitor your lighters and your matches. and educate your children.
In recent weeks, we've seen multiple cases of children injured after allegedly being inspired by trends or stunts online. In New York City, a 16-year-old had to be rescued after climbing this bridge and falling 70 feet down a narrow shaft, suffering severe injuries. In Illinois, a 9-year-old suffered third-degree burns when this toy he put in the microwave burst. A 7-year-old, apparently trying to copy the same challenge, ended up in a coma. The toy company says it worked with social media companies to remove videos showing misuse of the product.
All I can sit there and say, I understand kids are going to do things, especially unsupervised. I get it. I understand it. But dear freaking grief, the fire breathing one, if you have to lock up your stuff, please lock up your stuff. I cannot stress that enough, because dear freaking God, just breathing fire sounds cool, but just no. And also, this is the reason why half our stuff have to have warning labels on it. That's the exact reason. For the simple fact of the matter that folks will try something. So if you think for 1 second people won't do dumb stuff, they will if given time. But the last thing that we do got, guys, is talking about the Texas Senate primary, to where unfortunately Jasmine Crockett did not win. James Tallarico did actually get the Democratic nomination.
How James Tallarico upset Crockett.
Yeah, so Congresswoman Crockett definitely came into this race with the name recognition, and these two candidates were fairly similar in terms of their policy positions, but they had two very different pitches for voters. Crockett really pitched herself as a fighter, someone who was going to take on Donald Trump and stand for Democrats, whereas State Representative James Tallarico was talking about taking on economic and political systems that are run by billionaires, saying that yes, he was going to take on Trump, but also that he was pitching himself as sort of this big tent Democrat who would bring in independents, who could bring in disaffected Republicans, whereas Representative Crockett was really focused on bringing in and juicing the Democratic voter turnout. And so two very different strategies there. And we see that Tallarico was the one that ultimately proved successful. But I will also say that it was a very long night last night, and Crockett actually came out and said she did not think that there was going to be a result because there were all of these issues at the polls in Dallas County and also in Williamson County in Austin, near Austin, and there's currently this legal battle going on over whether or not the extra 2 hours of voting that had been granted, if those votes are going to be allowed to be counted at this point. But regardless, based on the numbers, it looks like Tallarico has won it here.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, it sucks. I would be lying otherwise. It does suck. Don't get me wrong. James Tallarico seems like a great candidate. He's the one, profound Christian, but has an idea of church and state. We'll see if he still remains that way when if he does win the Senate seat. But it is a shame about Jasmine Crockett, just because, again, she did run a very good campaign. Unfortunately, her representative seat was taken out due to redistricting that was allowed in Texas. But the one thing I will say about this, guys, is just that, sometimes I really do wonder if we are ready for progressive leadership by women. Sometimes I really do wonder that, because I know for me, look, guys have had this since the beginning and the inception of our country. I'm all for women taking the lead. I'm all for women, really leading a progressive change. I am all for it, because every other country outside of us have had women leaders, whether it's presidents, prime ministers, or in higher power, and those countries have been fine. Now, a lot of people say, but Jasmine Crockett, she just wanted to upset the status quo. Maybe it needed to be. I know, and I may be a little biased. I like Jasmine Crockett. I like the fact that she stood up for a lot of things as representative of Congress, that she did not back down, that she did come with facts, and at the same time, such memorable things that we do have from her. And I think she would have made a wonderful senator. I also think she can make a good president. But again, not to take away from Tallarico, I'm sure if as long as he says who he says he is, we'll be fine. But it just makes me wonder, in this day and age, in our country, the way it is, sometimes I really do wonder, are we ready for women to be senators, to be more than senators, to be more than vice presidents? Are we really ready for a Madam President? And sometimes I really do freaking wonder that. And especially when it comes to black women that are moving forward, trying to change the needle, because let's be honest, if it wasn't for black women, a lot of things would be south. But hey, you didn't listen to us, you didn't listen to them, you voted for the convicts. And now everything is burning, and black people are sitting there saying, we did our part, now do yours. But with that being said, we are going to go and move on to our feel good segment, because usually how the fact we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make you the 50 Mandy, but hey, it's Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday, and we will leave you guys out some positive vibes and good vibrations. Hopefully the next story will do that, about a son who may have had his future calling as a coach, because, well, he's 6 years old and he sounds like a grown-ass man coaching other people.
In Tarboro, North Carolina, there are technically two Coach Besses for the high school basketball team.
Should I call you Coach Chris, little Coach Chris?
Whatever you want to call me.
All right, I like calling you Coach Chris.
Coach Reggie Bess is the head coach for the men's team, and over the past few years, his now 6-year-old son, Chris, has become famous both on social media and in town for his coaching role.
What do you like to do with the guys?
Coach him.
Coach them?
It's an honor.
Reggie says Chris started mimicking him on the sidelines even before he could talk, and it grew from there. Now it's at the point where Chris likes to dress as a coach even when he's at home.
He'll go get a Nike sweatsuit 2 or 3 times throughout the night or throughout the day.
Of course, Chris has much more freedom in practice, but on game days,
What y'all got going on? Making me look bad.
Chris usually stays near an assistant coach at the end of the bench and has the important job of bringing Dad his clipboard and marker when it's time to draw up plays.
Sometimes during the game, we have to tell him to get off the court. You know, telling Christopher that on game day is like talking to a brick wall.
You're a football player, and you're getting out there acting like you don't know what you're doing.
And while at this point, Reggie can often predict what Coach Chris is going to say,
Big time players make big time plays in big time games.
he still has a challenge for his son as he chases his dreams of one day becoming head coach too.
You know, you got a young son that wants to be like you when he grows up. And like I tell him, I don't want him to be like me. I want him to be better.
Now, guys.
Man, ain't that the truth? I can't stress that enough. I even said with my sons, I don't want you to be me, son. I want you to be better. Something all fathers seem to be saying whenever it comes to our kids. But anyway, you gotta love the fact that he is 6 years old. He's already barking at them. Yeah, I see a future coach in the making. That being said, that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. Thank you for watching, for liking, for letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate that. Shameless plugging before we do get out of here. Shout out to APR TV. Why? Because our show can be seen on APR TV. It's an app that's on the Roku channel or actually Amazon Fire TV. Check that out along with other shows. You will not be disappointed at Always Press Record or APR TV. Also, check out Blur Station. We talk about Blur Station all the time, a streaming site for content for us, by us, movies, television, anime, you name it, they have it. They will also be at BlurCon this weekend. BlurCon is a PlaCon that is actually happening in DC this weekend, starting on Thursday. If you are in the DC area, definitely check it out, as we will definitely be there. If you have a product that you would love to have be seen, whether it's a product, a show, an idea, whatever advertising needs that you have, we actually have a 24/7 live stream that's going on at Blur Station during BlurCon. If you do go to blurstation.com, hit the live stream section, it will basically take you to our advertising section. We'll be able to go down and see the live tiers that we do have for advertising. We are actually coming up on closing that very soon, so we do have some last minute. If you do want to advertise, you definitely want to jump on that before tomorrow. You definitely can. You definitely will not be disappointed, as your advertisement will be shown on the Blur Station BlurCon live stream all 3 days. However, if you are planning to attend, definitely check out BlurCon. You will not be disappointed. Also, check out blurstation.com, $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station, and Blur Station can be streamed on all smart devices. Also, check us out at How the Frack We Got Here on YouTube. Simply type in How the Frack We Got Here podcast. You at the bottom. We are the first thing that pops up. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button. So anytime that we do go live or show is uploaded, you can definitely see it there. And again, we cannot do any of this without your support, guys. So please, thank you for all of us doing it. If this is your first time watching our show, please definitely hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Check out my other show, the Get Bit Podcast. If you're into video games, comics, anime, myself, Tafari, and Tafari and Show Guy Joe usually have shows every Friday at 8:30ish, but definitely check out the Get Bit podcast at the GB Podcast, also on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe to be notified. We do reviews, we do shows, we even do live video game streaming, as I am currently doing Resident Evil 9 right now, so definitely check us out. And also check out Blurred's Eye View. Myself and other brethren are usually there every Tuesday and Thursday, and it can be seen on YouTube at Blurred's Eye View. You can also from there be able to subscribe to many of us there, especially Roomful of Blurs, as she has a show every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern with Navy Montel. Geek by Heart, Lainey, who actually does do video game streaming, as she's currently streaming Age of Calamity right now. We'll be getting back to Silent Hill F and Tears of the Kingdom soon enough. Tafari TV Gaming, Tafari TV's second gaming channel, where he games all things modern and retro, and he does it from walking on a treadmill. Always impressive. Of course, us, the Get Bit Podcast, and How the Frack Got Here. Navy Montel, who also does streaming and gaming, also does BlurryCon Convos. Always speaking with dope cosplayers in the con and all the nerd community. Shoko, who handles looter shooters like Overwatch, Lore of the Culture, that is always on the pulse of media, especially when it comes to comic books. Of course, Tafari TV, his main channel. Definitely check him all out there. And also check out Whoop-De Freaking Do at Fresh Nails by Z for all your nail needs. Outside of that, guys, we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Pretty much wherever you get your podcast, whether it's audio and video, you can definitely find us there under How the Frack Got Here. Definitely like, share, and subscribe there. I cannot stress enough, guys. Please protect your mental. Protect your mental. Your mental is just as important as your physical. Please take the time out to relax, to de-stress. The world is going to be fine. Trust me. But right now, we need you before you can help others. So definitely take care of your mental, take care of your physical. And speaking of your physical, gentlemen, please go see a doctor. Get checked out. Not just physicals. I mean, look, I'm over 40. I know what the next things happen. What I gotta get done after 40. Am I looking forward to it? No. Do I have to get it done? Yes. So we all want to be around for the long term, guys. So please, and I say this to men, black men in general, because I know we don't always make it to the doctor. Let's be honest. Life, we tend to put everybody's needs before our own. We tend to make sure everybody's covered before ourselves. It's just the way we are. But black men, please go to the doctor. Please get checked out. I cannot stress this enough. At the same time, guys, do something fun. Go outside. Check on your friends. Again, the world will be fine. Drop the phone from doom scrolling and get to enjoy. That's the best way I can put this. Outside of that, guys, last thing to say about How the Frack Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society. We're informed. We're progressive. We're informed. We're progressive. We're informed. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions that we should have done back then we're doing now today. Like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman as Federal Reserve Governor, maybe one day electing our first black woman to be called Madam President. All great things. We don't learn from history. We are doing to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up on our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we'll get through this. Live long and prosper, guys. I'm out. Peace.